In today's video, we're going to cover some interesting fans that come with the magnet connect, that are quite easy daisy chainable, and that they look quite, I would say, clean, slick design with dash of RGB, and that is quite subtle, I would say, really subtle. These are SeaSonic MagFlow ARGB 120mm PWM case fans that come in a triple box with loads of accessories when we're talking about cables, but not in terms of having too much cables inside your PC build. And I'm going to break it down to you because the cables that you get inside are the cables that help you lose cables inside the case for better cable management. I know it's a bit confusing, but we'll get to that part quite shortly. So here it is. From one side we have the male connections, and on the other side we have the female connections, which, as you can see, you have two standoffs that are magnetically attached to the other fan, which has two magnetic indents inside. So this is how they connect. Quite straightforward, very easy, very simple. And you just need to push a bit when we're talking about the connection part, the actual connection part that transfers the PWM speeds and that transfers the addressable RGB lights. Since we're talking about MagFlow fans that this time have addressable RGB, we have a line inside the fan and right here in the middle around the SeaSonic logo, and I have to say this looks quite nice, I do have to say. Now when we go and discuss the design of it, we have on each corner anti-vibration rubber pad, which you already know what that's for, and that's basically it. You only see one slight part of the cable running here, and that's all there is to it. We have a nice sticker, nice-ish I would say, because it does say SeaSonic MagFlow, and then you have some specs, code name, voltages, amperes and RPMs. Now, since I touched base with technical specifications, let's check those out as well. So the model number is SF12025MFL. The dimensions are 120 x 124.2 x 26.6, and the three daisy chainable fans, the dimensions are 120 x 365.8 x 26.6. This is important for mounting the fan at the rear and on the radiator. Well, also if you decide to place it on front but you have limited space, just so you know. Then we have connections, the DC 12 volts for the RPMs and LED DC 5 volts. The rotational speed is from 600 to 2000. Acoustic noise at the maximum is 30.15 decibels. Maximum airflow is 49.47 CFM. Air pressure is 2.28 millimeters H2O at maximum. Mean time before failure 100,000 hours. We have fluid dynamic bearing, 3 years warranty. And when we go to the box content, you have three fans, one power cable, one PWM extension cable, one addressable RGB extension cable, one fan-to-fan cable, 12 screws, and of course one controller. So when I mentioned the box content and when I said loads of cables, you get one cable that connects, and it's basically the main cable that gives the signal to the fan. It connects to your fan, and then you have one addressable RGB heading out and one PWM cable heading out. This gives you an option to connect it directly to your motherboard, or you can connect it to the controller that you get. So here is the thing, the cable running from the fan is a bit shorter, I would say 10 centimeters, but you get two extension cables for the PWM and for the addressable RGB, around 45 centimeters to reroute the cables as you wish. But we have the controller, right? So if you desire to connect everything to the controller, which gives you two options, you can connect up to 3 addressable RGB connectors. The LEDs here are a bit irrelevant because the controller gets powered by SATA power and gives you an option to actually connect like 8. I connected 8 fans, you can go with 9 without any problems, but you get in each box you get one controller, which is great. And then you have a button on the side as well. Now you can adjust the addressable RGB here, which gives you an option. If you don't have addressable RGB on your motherboard, you can just simply use the controller, or you can connect the cable that runs out of the controller to your addressable RGB header on your motherboard and long press the button that usually is for the modes. then it will sync to your motherboard. This is quite straightforward and easy, I would say. Next thing, you also have an option to connect, and if I'm not mistaken, I saw that in their manual, you can connect the reset button from the case to the controller and adjust the lights over there on the reset button, if you don't need a reset button. Of course, it's all up to you to decide after all. But the controller really does help out and gives you an option to control all the lights simultaneously without any problems. Now, when we're talking about daisy chaining these fans, of course, they're magnetically connected, they're really straightforward, you just push them together and that's all there is to it. Later, if you want to, for instance, daisy chain two sides of the fan, so top, front, or bottom power supply shroud and rear, you can do that with additional cable that comes inside this box. So it gives you an option to connect two sides of the case with the fans and run out with only two cables. One is addressable RGB and one is PWM. So it kind of simplifies everything and really does make it quite nice and easy. The connectors actually have a note on it that even though the magnetic part does connect with the connector for the PWM and the addressable RGB, you do have to push it a bit so that the pins go inside the connection part, and that's basically all there is to it. So I would say really straightforward connection. The design is outstanding, and I have to say I'm really loving the subtle design, and not subtle, I would say minimalistic, with quite nice addressable RGB. Now, of course, I'm going to use the SeaSonic's Synchro Q704 case for this presentation, because after all, it is just a presentation to show you guys how these fans can simplify your building process and cable management as well at the same time. And this way you can see that we have one MagFlow right here on the power supply shroud and one here at the rear. I managed to connect them quite easily and just reroute the cables at the back. This one is the main one and it has two connections. One is to daisy chain these two fans and the other one is heading out, basically giving the signal for the PWM and for the addressable RGB. When we talk about the top and the front, unfortunately in this scenario I couldn't connect it because when you use the AIO, the magnetic extrusion parts right here that are designed where the chips, where the pins are for the connection, are sticking out that much, so I can't use them here on this side because of the tubes. So I had to push it here at the back, and then the cable is a bit too short to manage it all around and to reroute it over there. Maybe, and there's loads of space at the front, I could push the radiator a bit closer to the fans, and then I would have enough space and cable length basically to reroute the cable from the back and connect it at the top part of this one, of the front fans, and then the bottom part will be the connection that gives the signal for the addressable RGB and PWM. So these are the possibilities what you could do, and I'm quite loving it. One more thing I do have to mention, because I'm really into all the SeaSonic power supplies, Vertex GX 1200 is powering up the system, even though for this configuration you don't need 1200 watts, but I wanted to make it look unofficial when we're talking about the brand, and you know I usually do prefer doing that as much as possible from one brand to build a PC, and so it kind of gives more significance and visual aspect because it does look aesthetically pleasing. So 3 on front, 3 on top on the radiator, we have one on the power supply shroud and one at the rear. That's 8. You do need 3 of these boxes. I think you could grab a single one. So since you get controller in each of these triple pack, you get 2 of the triple packs if you want, it's all up to you, and 2 single ones to fill up the Synchro Q704. The MagFlow fans, addressable RGB ones, are quite outstanding, and as you can see from the close-ups, the addressable RGB is quite nicely designed and I love it. They aren't that loud and they're quite easy to connect, which is quite straightforward. I mean, I have only one cable on front, one cable at the top, and one cable here. well, basically 2 if we count the addressable RGB and PWM. But if I connected these two and pushed the radiator a bit further, then I would have only 4 cables, addressable RGB and PWM. That's it. And each of those cables will be, PWM will be running directly to the motherboard, addressable RGB to the controller if you desire to play around with that. And at the back it really looks nice and clean. As you can see, it's really tidy. The case is designed that way, so I mean, hope you remember the Sonic Hedgehog build. Shame I didn't have these fans for that PC build. That would look outstanding. But regardless of that, loving the fans. I don't have to mention the case or the power supply. You already know my thoughts about that. So yeah, there's that. I'll place the links in the description below so you can check out the triple pack and the single pack as well. And if you don't want to have addressable RGB or you want to go with non-RGB, you can go with MagFlow PWM case fans as well. No RGB added, and that'll be all for today, guys. Links are in the description. If you're new to the channel and you like the build and everything that you saw, you can also subscribe, hit the like button and click the notification bell. So hopefully I will see you shortly in a new video. Bye bye.